If you think about the earlier part when we were writing formulas with primitive values, I did mention that you can also refer to other cells while writing formulas, right? And if you remember clearly, we did write something where we're adding 2 and 2 together with the 2's being values that we have placed in some cells. So we can basically try to use the same logic in that example to get the total sum of salaries for these guys. Okay, now that means I want to go into my results cell and I want to use the equal to sign and I want to start to add up all of these guys, all of these numbers. So I'm going to select the first number, Lionel Messi salary. I'm going to use the plus operator, that is plus Kylian Mbappe salary, plus Neymar Jr. salary, plus Sergio Ramos salary. Okay, now instead of all of this manual job of addition that I am currently doing, Excel has a function that can do this for me, and that's the whole essence of functions. They help you to complete tasks that you typically want to do manually. So instead of manually adding up different cells, there is a function that is specifically charged for adding up things. All I need to do is specify the things I want to add up and it's going to complete the rest for me. Okay, that's where the name of the function becomes important. So for every task that you want to do in Excel, you have to know what exactly is the solution you are trying to create, and is there a function in Excel that can help you to achieve that solution, right? So for example, now the solution I'm trying to create right now is to get the total of some numbers within certain Excel cells. And I know that I do have a function that I can use to total things up within cells in Excel, and the name of that function is the sum function. Now, before we even get to try to use the sum function, now, since I have an idea of the name of the function I want to use, if we are going to write your formula with function, obviously you always need to start with your equal to sign, and then you want to start to type the name of that function, right? So in this case, the name of the function we are trying to use is the sum function. So if I start to type S, for example, you will see that Excel automatically gives me a list of functions that begin with S. And if you start to hover on each one of them, obviously you are going to see the description of what the function does, right? So if I keep scrolling down, I will eventually get to see sum somewhere. But to narrow the list of options given to me by Excel's IntelliSense, I will basically just add a U to this. Now, all functions listed are functions that begin with SU. I can either complete the name of the function with an M. Then I'm going to open parentheses or open brackets like this to continue my formula. Now that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is I don't necessarily have to type in the SUM in full, because I can just have SU, and then I can either use my mouse to go to points to the one I want this way, and you can see the description right there. Or maybe I can just, use my arrow down key on my keyboard to just manually navigate step by step like this until I get to the function I want to use. You see it highlighted in blue. Now, once I get to that function, if I'm using this method, the quickest way for you to move forward is to press the tab key on your keyboard. So when you press the tab key on your keyboard, it's going to automatically select that function name for you, and it's going to automatically open the bracket or open the parentheses for you as well. Now, the next important thing you have to take note of is basically the syntax of the function. Now, the syntax of the function usually contains the descriptions that you see within the open brackets on that function. So now you can see that this function basically has a couple of things. You can see number 1, then you see a comma, and then you see number 2. These are what we call the arguments of the function. Okay, and in the argument of functions, what you have to do is to provide the input for Excel, right? So right now it's like saying, okay, so I want to use the sum function to add up a couple of things. Now I'm going to have to supply information about the things I want to add up. That's basically what the function syntax is about. And the things that you see, they describe the inputs that you are expected to provide for the function to work. And also, you will see that those inputs, if they are more than one, you see them separated by comma. And if it's only one, you see only one, right? Now, when you see it separated by comma like this, simply means there are more than one. And when at the end of the day, you get to see dot, 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 then it means it's even more than the numbers you are seeing now. Because right now, all I'm seeing as arguments for the sum function is number 1 and then number 2. I see a comma and I see dot, dot, dot. That means there is more, right? So, and the way we typically want to enter arguments for the function is to enter the argument step by step. So I'm going to enter the argument for the sum function one by one, for example. So let's say that I select this as the first number, right? Then I have to press comma. Now watch what happens when I press comma. So once I press my comma like this, you see that, the next emboldened item is now number 2. That means I'm currently in the position to specify number 2. The other thing you also see is that number 3 also is up, right? So now I'm supposed to, specify what my number 2 is. I can pick that guy as my number 2. Then I can, put in another comma. You see number 3 is now emboldened. I'm supposed to pick number 3. And I'm basically supposed to pick all of these guys one by one like that. Okay? But that's not what we're going to do, because this is not much different from just manually typing C5 plus C6 plus 6 plus C7. I'm going to show you the right way for us to complete this in the next video. All I'm trying to explain to you right now is how to use functions in Excel and how to enter the function arguments. One last thing you need to note: for every Excel function that contains arguments that you are supposed to input for the function to work, just like we are looking at the sum function now, and we are seeing arguments or inputs for number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. What you will also notice is that some of those arguments are in square brackets. So for example, look at number 1 arguments and look at number 2 and number 3 and number 4 arguments. You will see that number 1 argument just stays the way it is, but numbers 2, 3, and 4 arguments, as we are currently seeing now, are in square brackets. When the argument is in square bracket, it simply means that argument is optional. You don't have to specify it. It is not compulsory. The function is still going to work even when you don't specify it. Okay? As you get to see more aggregate functions in use, you are going to understand better how to use functions and how to specify the arguments for the inputs that are required.